Hello, my name is JuCoby Johnson, and I'm part of the artistic cohort at the Jungle Theater.
I'm H. Adam Harris, and I'm directing Redwood by Brittany K. Allen at the Jungle.
Very good to see you.
Of course, it's always good to see you, Jacoby.
Well, I'm just going to hop right into our first question. I'm just wondering, how did you approach directing Redwood? And I guess what I mean by that is when you first were handed this script, what was your first way in for you as a director?
Yeah, I think when I first read it, I was really struck by the play really sort of looks at this idea of like what would happen if the ancestors walked among us. Stevie, the character, says, I kind of like the idea of my ancestors looking out for me on some cosmic plane. And so I was just really struck by like, there's this chorus of ancestors throughout the play. And when we first see them, they're in a hip hop dance class, and then they sort of serve as all these other characters throughout the play. And so I was just really struck about like, how do we play with this idea of like there is this ancestral world that only they occupy, there is the real world that the characters occupy, and then there's like this whole other world that happens where two of the primary characters have these really big imaginations. So there's this imaginary world as well. So for me, the entry point was like understanding the rules of those worlds, the real world, the imaginary world, and the ancestral world. And that sort of was the entry point for design and for really thinking about what the production would be overall.
Hmm. And do those rules, did that go into you trying to figure out how does an audience understand which world we are in as an throughout the play?
Yes, absolutely. It became really, really important. And like Sarah Barr, who did our set, like I was like, I need like a ritual, temple, sacred sort of space that also can be like, at least six different locations. So a lot of that storytelling was through the set and really sort of understanding like, oh, what's the ancestral area? What happens when they cross into that world? Lights by Karin and sound by Dan. Like it became really that was the big challenge of our tech time, was like really trying to understand the rules of the world and how we would know we were going into one world versus another. But it was pretty exciting. And there is some exciting reveals that happen
Yeah.
that I won't give away, that we're very, very excited about, and they really sort of help tell that story as well.
Oh, that's super cool. This production was supposed to originally happen in March of 2020, and
Yes.
the world has changed so much since then. And I just wonder, how was your thinking about this production changed from March 2020 to now being in 2022?
Yeah, I think there are a few things. I think just purely as an artist, like what it means to sort of gather in a room and create. Toni Morrison famously has that thing, this is what we do. We go to work, we use words, we use text. This is what artists do. And so that feels very sort of like palpable when you show up on the first day of rehearsal and everybody's in a mask, which is pretty cool. So I think it's really a part of it is just the desire to create, the desire to be present with other people and to tell a story, and to sort of say, yes, we are worthy of gathering, we are worthy of doing this work. So that's on an artistic side. I think as it relates to Redwood by itself, it was really interesting. We're opening now on the day we are closing this production of Redwood on the day that we were going to open 2 years ago, which feels pretty like kismet in a way, which is pretty interesting. And I guess what we've discovered is that, like, I don't know, it's a wild thing to come face to face with something that you almost finished creating, by like one day. It's been interesting coming face to face with that work and what that work was at that moment and what is still powerful and palpable about that work, but also what's new. What have we learned about ourselves in 2 years? What have we learned about ourselves as artists? What have we now, as we encounter the play, what rules didn't make sense, or don't make sense to us now, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, with all the things of 2020 that were really difficult, closing productions and life changing, there is something really beautiful about getting to revisit something and make it even better than it was before,
Yeah.
with our new sense of, with our new eyes and our new sense of the work.
Yeah. Yeah. And the actors, everybody's been so excited. We, two of the actors who were with us in the 2020 production weren't able to come back for this production. And so we have two other actors who've joined them, and they've just sort of really picked up the mantle of that work and carried it forward so beautifully. And so it's just been very, very exciting. China Bricky is sort of the focus of this play, and like watching her journey and like her own sort of growth and understanding of Meg, Marguerite Elaine Wilson, has been really powerful.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I mean, since we were talking about sort of the contemporary moment and the ways in which this play and its themes are showing up in our contemporary world, I just want to know, like, what do you believe the, significance of experiencing this play now is? What is that, why Redwood now?
Yeah, I think one of the things that Brittany does is she takes this really hefty subject, this really sort of, I always tell people like, oh, when I'm describing Redwood, I go, oh, it's a play about this interracial couple, Black woman, white man, and through a series of events, they discover that the white man's ancestors are the people who enslaved her ancestors. And then I go, and it's a comedy, and they go, what? Like, what is that about? What does that even mean? And I go, well, that's the point of the play, is that like, I always, JuCoby, I like to refer to our collective Black grandmother. Our collective grandmother would say, we laugh to keep from crying. And so for me, what Brittany does with this play is she introduces comedy and joy and laughter and heart and energy into this sort of very heavy story. And for me, that laughter is the thing, that laughter and that love is the big sort of central thing that I want people to take away, is that, I always say, I want you to come. I want your mind to be challenged. I want your heart to be open, and I want your soul to be questioning, and so for me, that feels like this play at this point in time is a great opportunity to gather in space to tackle a subject that can sometimes be very hard and complicated. And through the power of love and humanity and laughter, we can sort of really start to reckon with some history, and we can challenge ourselves to think about, what is the relationship of us to our ancestors. My computer right now has a thing on the front that says, I am my ancestors' wildest dream. And, recently, one of the viral tweets was like, I hope I wasn't my ancestors' wildest dream. I hope they dreamed of rest. I hope they dreamed of peace. I hope they dreamed of something that would give support and succor to their lives, And so I think it's interesting to think about that sort of narrative of the way we think about our ancestors and what they possibly thought about us. But what is the responsibility of our bodies? Brittany says in the play, the body remembers and skin never forgets. And so that's what I'm holding on to.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that's amazing. And it's something that you hit on that I think you hit on in all of your work, whether that be as an actor or a director or as a facilitator, teacher. Love and heart is always at the core of your work. And this may be a vague question, but I just want to know, what is the importance of love and heart in anything that you encounter? Why is that so important to you as a creator?
Yeah. Um, Tenderness and vulnerability and love and acceptance and laughter are all things that I think the world could use a lot more of. And when I think of myself as an artist, as a person who holds and crafts space, I think of myself as a person who tries to bring love into a room, love into a space, not just for the people who are going to absorb it, the audience, but the actors and the collaborators, that we introduce joy and love into a space. I think I spent a lot of time earlier in my career in spaces that weren't joyful, or feeling like they could have more joy in them. And so it's become sort of central to my work. But also, I think right now in my work, one of the things, we live in a world now that's been really sort of committed to anti-racist practices and EDI. And like, one of my big things recently has been for me that I'm all about what are we doing to sustain joy for all people, all bodies, and all identities? And so for me, that's the definition. That's my starting point, is how do we cultivate and sustain joy for all bodies, all people, all identities in as many spaces as possible. And for me, that becomes my purpose. And that's sort of the thing that I feel very passionate about. And I think that that's the way we're going to see ourselves through.
Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. I'm your friend, so maybe I'm biased, but that is, I think, a thing that makes your work very unique. That sense of joy, it's very present whenever I witness your work. And you can tell that that's central to the room. Not only the play itself, but central to the way in which we as artists engage with each other, and also the way in which we as an audience are invited to experience the work. Well, I have one more question for you before we come to an end. But being a multifaceted artist, you are all of those things I have named: a director, an actor, a facilitator, a teacher, a world builder, and world changer. And I wonder, what is it like today, especially in 2022, with all the things that we've experienced? What is it like being a working artist? And I would like to add to that and say, what is it like being a multifaceted artist during this time? And that
Yeah.
can really be anything, the difficult moments or the joyful moments.
Yeah. I mean, it's heavy, it's a heavy thing we do. Art requires a great amount of vulnerability. It requires a great amount of trust. It requires a great amount of like doing a thing and letting it go, because once you do a thing, other people sort of have their thoughts about it. I think it requires a great amount of patience.
Hmm.
The choreographer on this piece, Austin, is also a multifaceted artist, and I used to ask her, like, what's it like to go back from acting and directing? And she was like, oh, I love just being an actor. And of course, now when we say just being, we just mean that as a director, you feel responsible for like everybody in the room and like making sure people get what they need. There's no such thing really as a break for a director, like on the 10, people come and check in. And as an actor, you completely have a whole different sort of thing that you're focused on. And so I think going back and forth has been really, really exciting, and it stretches me in a really powerful and palpable way. But it also can be exhausting, I think, particularly as we think about creating in this time. We think about the fight for justice in a variety of ways across a variety of spaces and ways of being in the world. Sometimes it can feel like we're not doing enough. It can feel like the things that stress us are not the things that are going to save the world. But then I remember that humanity is wide. Humanity and the way we do humanity is wide. And I know that what we do at its core is about the cultivation of joy for all people, all bodies, in as many spaces as possible. So in that way, I feel very lucky to be working. I feel very filled with gratitude and with a great sort of sense of hope and joy that I get to wake up and pursue the things that bring me peace and allow me to pay my bills. Because that's
Absolutely.
the part too, right? Like,
Yeah.
we all are, capitalism, and I like to eat. So, like,
You like the lights to stay on.
oh, I want the lights to be on, and I want to be able to sleep in a comfortable place.
Right.
So it's also nice to be paid for what, I call your work heart work. And
Mhm.
so I think that it's nice when we are able to bring our heart work to people and it speaks to them, and we also get paid for it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I know that said that was the last thing, but you opened something up for me in the way of like, because this is so difficult, especially when you uh, are multifaceted and you do multiple things. Why is it important to you that you extend your artistry to many different forms?
Yeah, I'm always very cautious about answering this question because I don't want to seem, filled with hubris as the Greeks. But I always say to this answer, I do it because like my friends told me I should. Like I do it because the people that I value and I respect are like, we love when you run a room. We
Hmm.
like working with you. We like the rigor of the work. We like how you do this or you do that. And that made me go, oh, wow, like, okay, cool. So if the people that I trust in the world say we think you should do this because it makes spaces and processes better,
Hmm.
then I'm gonna do it. When my people call, I'm gonna show up in whatever facet they need me. They
Hmm.
want me to be an actor and bring some, heart and voice to the room. Sure. They want me to hold the process and guide it towards some sort of vision. I'll do that too. So for me, it's about showing up. So sometimes it sucks that like the industry at large or like so and so or gatekeeper A, B, C, or D doesn't see you in a different light. But when your people do, that's the thing that you use, and that's the thing that you carry forward, and that's the thing that I hold on to. I do it for my people.
Absolutely. And I mean, there is something beautiful about being called to something, something that you may not have sought out yourself, but you were called to it. And
Yeah.
that can be from your elders, that can be from your ancestors, or that could be from your friends and peers who call you to
Absolutely.
something. And it is important to show up when you're
And you
called.
always gonna get better. And
Hmm.
you always, that's the thing too. I'm like, there's no reason to, like, we all want to be great at a thing, but I'm like, the artist that I am today won't compare to the artist that I am 2 years from now, 3 years, 5 years.
Absolutely. Well, brother, man, I really appreciate talking to you all the time. You've been working really hard on Redwood for 2 years.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm really excited that it's going to have the chance to be seen by hopefully many, many, many people. I'm excited to experience the work for the first time. You're an incredible artist, and I'm so happy that people are going to get to witness that.